Hello and welcome to the Program Guidance webinar for the fiscal year 2027 Massachusetts Downtown Initiative Capital Grant Program, also known as MDI Capital. I'm Alexandra Pulio, Deputy Director for Community Programs here at the Executive Office of Economic Development. I'm pleased to be able to share some information about this new grant program with you today. So today we're going to talk briefly about the program overview. We're going to go through the application instructions, talk about important program parameters, how to be competitive, and give you some potential project examples. I do want to make an important note today that this program and its guidelines are still subject to final capital program design, approval, and appropriation. The guidelines and this webinar deck will be updated to reflect any revisions upon finalization. So let's get started with the program overview. This is a new grant program called MDI Capital. It strengthens the economic and cultural vitality of the Commonwealth's downtowns, village centers, and main streets by investing in vibrant, livable centers that attract residents, stimulate business activity, and promote equitable regional growth. This is an evolution of the original MDI program. You can think of it as MDI 2.0. There are two types of grants that are made through this program: planning grants and implementation grants. Eligible applicants are municipal governments and other public entities. And this program is administered through the Community One Stop for Growth. That's where you'll find the application, and that's how we conduct a collaborative review process that streamlines the experience for the applicant and better coordinates economic development programs and staff on engagement and grant making. If you're thinking about applying to this program, there are some important project parameters that you should know. First, these are cost reimbursement grants. And there are two types of award sizes based on the type of grant that you're applying for. In the planning grant category, the grants are up to $100,000. And in the implementation grant category, they're up to $250,000. But requests of up to $500,000 may be considered only in the implementation category, with evidence of a one-to-one cash match on any amount above $250,000. In terms of the project timeline requirements, the grant-funded work should be completed within 18 months of the grant award. So that's by early 2028. And the types of funds that you can, the types of projects that you can spend grant funds on, we have a few different types of projects depending on the category. So first we'll talk about the planning category. In the planning category, we have two types of projects: downtown or village center improvement plans. So those are action-focused plans that identify specific projects or investments. And the other is district management creation. So the grant would be to provide plans, documents, technical assistance to create entities like business improvement districts, parking districts, or cultural districts. The other category of grants is the implementation grants. So we have public realm and streetscape improvements like sidewalks, lighting, plazas, and other pedestrian-friendly upgrades. Then we have wayfinding and signage, which is production and installation of directional signs and gateways. And finally, public facilities and gathering spaces. So parklets, outdoor stages, and other public spaces that attract people downtown. When you're thinking about these projects, really keep in mind the program goals, right? So we're trying to reduce vacancies, increase pedestrian activity, and foster resilient business-friendly districts that enhance the quality of life and reinforce Massachusetts' reputation as an exceptional place to live, work, and invest. So the projects really want to be focused on the downtown area. Ineligible expenses would include any kind of operating costs like payroll, rent, food, improvements to private property. These improvements can only be made to public property. Expenses that are incurred prior to the grant period, landscaping, and vehicle leases or purchases. Those would all be considered ineligible expenses. When we're evaluating these applications, there's a number of criteria that we use. I really want to emphasize that you want to look at the guidelines that are posted on mass.gov for the full criteria for evaluation. This is just going to be a really high-level summary. We're going to look at the project need in the downtown context when we're evaluating these applications. We're going to look at the anticipated outcomes and impacts. We're going to look to see if the project is achievable within the 18-month timeline. And we're going to look to see if the capacity, leadership, and partnerships are all there to support an effective and impactful project. Then we're going to look to see if there's a reasonable and cost-effective budget. If the process and the result promote equity, inclusion, and opportunity. And if there's local and private sector support, making sure that this project reflects the desires of the community. Next, we're going to look if it's an implementation grant. There's some additional criteria that we're going to take into account here. Alignment with existing community plans. So if you had a local rapid recovery plan, something like that. Project readiness, and long-term sustainability and maintenance. Again, these are a summary. Please see the guidelines for the full criteria. I want to emphasize a few important questions, although all aspects of the application are important, of course. Really want to make sure that you're focusing on the anticipated outcomes questions, the project impact question, and the community description and engagement plan, because those are some of the key things that we're going to look for to make sure that both the process and the results promote the goals of the program. And I'll also emphasize that in the guidelines, we talk about the sort of data that we'll be looking for, both in evaluating applications and in reporting once grants are made. Last but not least, MDI Capital is a new grant program. Here are some projects that might be eligible. Updating a publicly owned sidewalk downtown to improve accessibility and walkability. Hiring a consultant to create an implementation plan and guide stakeholders through the bid creation process. Building a bandstand in a publicly owned park in a town center to host community events and draw residents and visitors to the downtown area. Improving pedestrian and cyclist experiences by emphasizing branding and installing distinctive light fixtures in the downtown area. Creating and installing downtown wayfinding signs using existing downtown branding and colors. So these are just some of the potential projects, by no means an exhaustive list, and we look forward to seeing the projects that you come up with. Thank you so much for your time. Take care.